This is the 18 Strong Podcast with Jeff Pellizzaro, episode number 61.
The long, slow kind of cardio, the 3 to 5 times per week, there's a lot of great insights and research out there that is good. We've just, over the last 2 or 3 decades, found this to be better.
Welcome to the 18 Strong Podcast, where you get direct access to the world's greatest experts on training harder, practicing smarter, and playing better golf. Now, here's your host, Jeff Pellizzaro.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Jeff Pellizzaro, golf fitness professional, physical therapist, and your host of the 18 Strong Podcast. And I want to thank you for showing up and listening to the show today. If you didn't listen to last week's episode, I'm going to encourage you to, after listening to today's episode, go back and listen to episode number 60 with Adam Long, who is a current Web.com player, soon to be on the PGA Tour if all things go well. I think it was one of the best interviews that we've had, and it really gave an inside look at, the mind of a golfer that's playing at the highest level. And so if you are a golfer looking to up your game, or if you have a junior golfer that's looking to aspire to become a very high-level player or get to the level of a professional player, I highly recommend going back, listening to Adam's episode. I actually talked to him a few days ago. He said that he's been getting a lot of great feedback, that it's the best interview that he's done, and I know he's been on a bunch of different shows and podcasts and stuff like that, so that was a nice little compliment for the 18 Strong Podcast, but he said he really enjoyed it, has been getting great feedback from his family members, friends, that it was a great episode. So highly encourage you to go back and listen to it. There's a ton of information and golden nuggets that you're going to get out of that. All right, now back to today's guest, which is Neal Hausch from Akron, Ohio, owner of Golf Fitness Plus, which is a fantastic facility where he works with golfers of all levels. And on occasion, really like once a year, a lot of the tour players kind of flow through his facility when they're going to the Bridgestone Invitational at Firestone Country Club. Now, what I love about Neal is he's a guy that works with you. And when I mean you, the listener, the golfer that is looking to get better, loves playing the game, but not necessarily the professional golfer, not necessarily the junior golfer, but you, the guy that's, playing hopefully once a week, twice a week, whatever, has other things going on in his life, but loves golf, wants to get better at golf, wants to get more fit. And so Neal works with the people that I work with. And that's what today's episode is all about, is what can we do in your golf fitness program, specifically geared a little bit more towards the cardio stuff, the high-intensity stuff. What really is going to work for you with your busy schedule, your level of fitness? What's the right way for you to be doing this stuff? What's the right fit for you? How do you gauge it? How hard to push yourself? How hard to not push yourself? That kind of stuff. So Neal has a background in not just training and, exercise science, but he also does a lot of work in the hospital setting with cardio patients, cardiopulmonary patients. So he's got, the medical side as well as the fitness side, and really ties it all very well in very simple terms, in ways that you can understand how to implement into your program immediately. So after you listen to this episode with Neal, which I know you're going to love, I'm going to ask you to do me a quick favor. Go to iTunes, leave a rating and review on iTunes, and subscribe to the 18 Strong Podcast. And now I know what you're thinking right now. You're thinking, oh, he's not really talking to me. The other people listening to this show will subscribe, leave a rating, review. No, I'm talking specifically to you. Go to iTunes, leave a rating, leave a review, and definitely subscribe to the podcast. We have some incredible shows coming up. You don't want to miss them. So when you subscribe, it's going to automatically populate your feed and let you know when we have a new episode available. And it really does do us at 18 Strong a huge favor by allowing us to raise in the rankings. It provides a little bit more global notoriety, which ultimately just allows us to provide a better show, a better website, and a better overall experience for you, the listener. Okay, enough asking favors of you. It's time for you to enjoy your episode with Neal Hausch. All right, Neal, welcome to the 18 Strong Podcast, and thanks for coming on, man.
Thank you, Jeff, for having me. It's good to be here.
Yeah. You and I have connected a lot over Facebook and social media. This is the first time we've met, at least cyberly, face to face. And
It's true.
It's nice to finally meet you and get the chance to kind of talk about some of the different conversations that are going on in the golf world, the fitness world. But before we dive in, as always, if you could just give your background to the 18 Strong listeners and kind of tell them where you're coming from and tell them all about Golf Fitness Plus and what you guys have going on there.
Yeah, I start off, my background's in exercise science. I did my undergraduate work at Malone University, which is about 5 minutes from the Pro Football Hall of Fame, Canton, Ohio here. Exercise science, I had aspirations of medical school. I was on my way to med school. I double majored biology pre-med, and I wanted to be more competitive for med school, so I started to pursue my graduate degree. And at this point, I had really lost my passion for golf. I'd played a little bit in college. I played in high school, loved the game, and it went out the window one day. I have no idea why, and didn't really care if I ever picked a club up again, and was really going full steam ahead for clinical. Like I said, being a hotshot orthopedic physician by the time I was 30. That was really my goal. And went to graduate school to be a little more competitive for med school. And about halfway through, I was starting to kind of think, I bet this whole sport exercise science could really tie into with golf, and my wheels were turning a little bit, and I was in the middle of a class, not paying attention really, sitting at a computer, and I just simply Googled golf fitness, and that's where one of the first things came up was TPI, and those guys have been doing things that I was thinking about. Like this makes sense to me. This is kind of where I want to go. And for about a year and a half, just kind of put a business plan together. Graduated. I was and still work at one of the local hospitals here in the cardiac testing department, and I've done internships in physical therapy and cardiopulmonary rehab. And I just started to sort of build this idea of what it would be like to just do golf fitness. It's kind of a side business, just get involved with it. And went to level 1 in Austin, met everybody in TPI in 2008, and connected with the guys with K-Vest, and made the leap to get more into the 3D world. So I was a one-man band. I'd travel around. I had like a suitcase, really. I would just have this bag of tricks. I'd meet people on the range or in their club or even in their home sometimes, and just do some one-on-one training, a little 3D, and I'm the only one doing it, and that was all. And 2011, I went to Toronto and did their medical track, which, I'm kind of a hybrid, Jeff, because I have this clinical background. I'm in American College of Sports Medicine sees me as a clinical exercise physiologist, but I don't really put my hands on anybody. I don't have a lot of that hands-on or manual therapy or physical therapy background, but with TPI, the medical track and the fitness track really within my wheelhouse. So I wanted to really learn more about working with people that were injured. You see it too. You get guys come in and 2 years ago I had this, or I never rehabbed that shoulder, and that was a big deal. And I was seeing more clients like that. And in 2012, TPI put that Chance at the Best program together. So with Life Fitness and TPI, every 2 years, they promote a certified professional the opportunity to take over their equipment that they have out at TPI out in Oceanside. And I contacted Lance Gill, which you've heard on the podcast, and I said, okay, what's the catch? And he's like, there's no catch. Write us a letter. Tell us what you're doing for golf fitness, how you're trying to grow the game, and how you could benefit from taking over a lot of the equipment that we have out here. So I wrote a letter. That's really what I did. In August of 2012, I wrote a letter, if nothing else, just to kind of get my story out in front of Greg and Dave, who was just on the podcast, and said, hey, this is what I'm doing in Ohio. You know who I am. This is what I'm doing. I just need the toolbox, basically. And then I got a email at the end of September from Mark Berry, who's one of the national account reps for Life Fitness, saying, you're one of 4 finalists. We really like your story. And I said, how bad were the letters? I mean, you got to be kidding. I knew what it would look like, but I mean, really? So they said, well, we'd like to present this to the winner at the 2012 World Golf Fitness Summit in Orlando. And I said, well, okay, when is that? And he's like, next week. And literally Friday at 5, I got an email that said, congratulations, book that trip. And so I was in front of everybody on the stage at the World Golf Fitness Summit in 2012 in Orlando. And if anybody's seen the movie I Bought a Zoo, I bought a gym.
Wow.
So that was the beginning of it. So then I'm about 5 minutes from Firestone Country Club here in Akron, Ohio, about 2,000 square foot gym.
So did you even have the facility yet?
No clue. Didn't have the facility. It was on paper. It would look like what it would look like, but they took it out of TPI. We were able to sort of store it temporarily. This was a dirt floor place, and we did the build out there. And I said TPI and Life Fitness, we coordinated them all bringing it in to help me set up what it would look like, where it would go, and marketing opportunities, everything like that. So it was a blessing, and it was a leap. Certainly kind of scary, but I needed it. We needed to grow what we were doing and really start bringing in clients full time into our playhouse, basically.
That's awesome.
And I saw Greg down in Orlando, and a lot of the equipment was almost virtually brand new.
Right.
Really, I mean, they like to turn that over, and they like to get the best of the best out there, and so it's all branded with the TPI logo on all of the stuff. Full Life Fitness equipment, full squat rack, cable cross, cardio, you name it. We really exploded what we wanted to do, and been going strong since.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I've only seen pictures, obviously, of the place, and of course your Facebook profile with the TPI logo in the background and all that good stuff. I mean, the place looks great, and you've had quite a few people even come in town. When you said you're next to Firestone Country Club, you're right near the World Golf Championship at Bridgestone Invitational. So just this past year, I remember seeing some pics. You had quite a few guys kind of roll through your place with their fitness professionals or medical team or whatever. So who kind of came by and what were they doing in the gym? And give us a little idea of what that week was like.
Yeah. Last year, the last 2 years we've been there, I really wanted to make it a point with people like yourself, really just start connecting with whoever was working with players on tour or chiropractors, PTs, anybody that may be coming to town with their players. And people like Sean Cochran, Dr. Troy Van Beesen, Dr. Craig Knight, Craig Davies, these guys are part of Tour Council. Just sort of cold calling and blindly reaching out saying, listen, this is what we're doing. This is where we're at. We'd love the opportunity for your players to come by and use the gym while you're in town or yourself. It's an open door. Love to have you if you want. And the tour has a trailer that goes along. They got a lot of top fitness equipment. They have, a semi-tractor trailer basically that they roll around everywhere, that they have access to a lot of stuff. But what's nice about our gym is it's private. It's quiet. It's professional. They know what they were getting when they came in. And so last year I was fortunate that Luke Donald and Martin Keimer came in and worked out, and in the afternoons or in the morning and the afternoon on the Friday of the tournament. And then this year, like I said, Troy Van Beesen, who works with Zach Johnson, he works with some kid by the name of Jordan Spieth. I don't know if you've ever met him or heard of him. Those guys, I mean, they're on the road 30 weeks or plus out of the year, but those guys stay locally, and they came in and worked out. Hunter Mahan came in on Wednesday morning, did a lot of mobility work prior to the practice round on Wednesday. Tuesday in the morning, a little bit of background now, we actually did a small build-out. We have Dr. Nick Colosi is my chiropractor partner that I work with, and we built a nice treatment room in the facility. So
nice.
We want to have – he does a lot of ART work, a lot of manual therapy with his practice. So, again, kind of where we're going, it's half clinical, half sport performance. But we wanted to have somebody in-house that if we needed them, they're there. But Shane Lowry came in and got a treatment from Shane Lawler, who you had on a couple podcasts ago as well, and did a little workout. And then that evening, Cornell Dreesen is another PT and strength and conditioning coach on tour, works with J-Day. And Charles Schwartzel, to name a few. And he called me and said, hey, my friend Jason would like to come by and see the place. And I was busy with clients. I didn't think anything of it. And he pulls up, and Jason Day comes in. And I'm just like, Oh, that's Jason.
Oh, that Jason. Yeah.
That Jason. But a lot of heavy strength training, a lot of squats, a lot of deadlifts. They do a lot of abdominal stuff. This is Tuesday prior to the round, getting ready, but they're pretty strategic on what they're doing when they do it.
Sure.
So he wanted to be able to get some of that in. I mean, this is August. This is mid-prime season for those guys. And you kind of sit there and you think, well, isn't that going to kind of mess them up? Isn't that going to be something that they're going to be sore the next day? These are top-level athletes. Quote a couple people, they are freaks. I mean, they are athletic. And when you stand next to them and you see how incredibly talented and physically gifted they are, they can handle that. That was something part of his routine he's been doing on the road. So
yeah, I think
a lot of balance work. Mm-hmm.
I think that's something kind of important to point out is, these guys are doing some strength training during the year. A lot of golfers kind of figure that, the strength training stuff might be an off-season type thing, and once you get into the season, some of that dies down. And I guess it's kind of a double-edged sword with these guys. First of all, they have the highest of level physios and strength trainers, so they know how to kind of prioritize what needs to be done. So they've got those guys watching them. They also, like you said, are freaks and can handle some stresses and loads that maybe the average guy can't handle. But on the other side of the coin, the average golfer can look and say, hey, I don't need to give up my strength training during the year just because it's golf season, right?
Exactly. One of the analogies I always use if I have a new player coming in is we'll talk about goals, what they want to do, and they're like, well, I usually golf once April hits, that's when I start golfing, or a league hits. And I always say, do you take blood pressure medication? And if they say yes, or I say, do you take a medication? And they say, well, yeah. And I said, do you stop taking that medication since whatever you're taking for is under control now? Well, no. I go, well, why would you stop coming here? If the medication is controlling what we wanted to control, that's doing its job. This exercise is the medicine. Now, we certainly have in-season and some off-season protocols that we kind of live by. I don't necessarily want to see guys in the gym 4 days a week, during the summer. Up here, as it's borrowed time from, May to September, but we want to get you on the right maintenance program. And that's, I think, what a lot of those guys on tour, they do. They have some specific things they're working on, but the golf, in my opinion, does not replace the exercise that we've been building up to. All of the strength and sport performance we've been building up to enhances your game, but the golf will not all of a sudden replace that. And I've had a couple players come back, some scratch golfers, feeling good come April, May, busy lifestyle, playing once a week, noticed a difference even come like June or July. Like, I just didn't feel like my legs were as strong as they were at the beginning of the season. And, I saw them maybe once a month. And that was more or less as a reassessment, because I don't know what you've been doing for 4 weeks.
Right.
How do you, we got to kind of rescreen. And so it's understandable that that's what people want to do. Me first, I want to golf, I want to play, I want to be outside, but we have to pay attention to the body. You just have to pay attention to it. If you're that committed to being that much better, you owe it to yourself to be, in the gym or paying attention to your physical conditioning just as much.
Yeah, and there are ways to do it where you can, cut down the time that you've devoted to it that you do in the off season. You don't have to be in the gym for an hour at a time, 4 days a week. There's, we talk about it all the time in here. There's different ways that you can work out. We're all busy guys. There's ways to kind of squeeze it in around your playing schedule, doing proper warm-ups and things like that. And I know one of the things that you have a strong background in is the cardio side, the cardiopulmonary with your hospital work and things like that. So I think it would benefit the golfer if we kind of jump into, first of all, what is cardio? Everybody has different definitions of what it is, and then maybe the different styles of it. So maybe we can kind of dive in to your initial thoughts on what a typical golfer, let's say the guy who I envision the most listeners of this show are somewhere between the 30 to 50 range, has a job, probably has some kids, loves to play golf, still wants to get his golf in, maybe has time to get to the gym a couple of times a week. Where do you go with that person?
Those clients, again, on average, the ones that I see, if you are the classic, I'm going to call it classic, the desk job person, or you do a lot of travel, I've heard it said, and I kind of go by it often, that in the next 10 years, Jeff, I think sitting will be the new smoking. You'll ask somebody what their risk factors are, and you're going to say, do you sit? If you sit, obviously we know what that does for posture in your golf swing. But when it comes to gait or just the taxing on the pelvis or anything else you're trying to do when you're trying to move your legs consistently, like that can be tiring. That is just simply itself tiring. So I've got some players that I'm like, listen, I just need you moving. If you want to talk about low intensity cardio, they're like, well, I want to get on a good cardio program. I'm like, I don't think you could walk for 10 minutes without having an issue. Okay, that's cardio for you. That's where we need to start. Like, let's build this up a little bit. I am a big proponent of the short bout, high intensity interval training, because there's an extensive amount of research out there that really shows that it is a benefit. However, to coin my good friend Jimmy Ewan, you've got the bird's eye view and you've got the worm's eye view. You can get down into the nitty gritty and really look at some technical stuff as far as the right cardio program. But big picture, when I look at what the player is trying to accomplish, let's start real generic. If you progress or that's easy, great. Let's keep pushing you. But I have players come in. Usually, if they come in on a Tuesday, Thursday program, I will start with some like a 5-6 minute high intensity, like 45 seconds. Go as hard as you can on the elliptical. I like to use a perceived exertion scale, like a 1 to 10 scale. So heart rate is important to look at. I tend to look at it more towards an intensity side. For years, we always thought there was like this cardio burning zone, this fat burning zone, your heart rate. But you, as well as I know, that you get people that are on a host of different medications, or they have a different background, or they're a little physically deconditioned when it comes to that. You're going to get a heart rate response all over the place. So we pay attention to heart rate, and I also do blood pressures because that's kind of my background. But I want to see how you metabolically will respond to whatever the stress is. And I always ask the players, on a rate from sitting on the couch is 1 and 10, I'm going to pass out. What number are you on? And then you can get guys hoofing at 9, and you're like, okay, good. They might be going 3 miles an hour on a 3% grade, but that's their highest intensity. That's cardio for them right now. They will progress out of that. Their heart rate might be in the like 150s, and that's towing the line for me. Like, I don't really like to see guys go higher than that, because there's a component then 2-3 hours next day where you are physically trying to still recover from that. If you imagine just, we just do the bleachers real fast, go up the bleachers fast as you can 3-4 times. If you had somebody do that and then 20 minutes later had them do it again, they probably would be able to do it, but it would be difficult. If you and I just went for a walk around the track for half an hour, then rested, we could probably do it again and do it again. So you really are looking for that taxing model that you can recover from, and there's a long-term benefit to that from the cardio. You've heard it said as well too. This is kind of our lifestyle. If you're a working guy, if you're on the go, and you don't have time for that, one of the first things you do, if you're late for a plane, all of a sudden you got to run to the gate. All of a sudden you pick up your bags, you got to run. That's heavy exertional effort, short amount of time. If a kid is starting to run towards the street and you have to take off after it, like, we don't kind of get ready to go do cardio. It's just kind of like instantaneous. That's how life, kind of works sometimes. And that's, I fully believe that I've seen a lot of results with players that their resting heart rate is lower. Their highest peak heart rate ends up being lower at their max. So whether they say a 9 or a 10, I've seen 15, 20 points in heart rate come down. Where the heart is a muscle, we actually are training it to do that, and it has a long-term benefit to it. So
I can kind of picture some folks listening thinking, well, what about me? I'm on some medications. I don't know if that's safe for me to do some sprints. I'm in my 60s. Is it okay for somebody like that to be doing sprints, or are there certain regulations?
Well, I'll back up and say it's coined as sprint interval training, and we think sprinting obviously like 100-meter dash. I'm looking to push you as hard as you feel like you can in a short amount of time, usually within a 45-second to 1 minute intervals like that. So that's that's the idea. So you're right. There's people out there that I've had 2 knee replacements and I'm on this medication and no, you're right. Like, this is where you say, can I get you moving on this treadmill? This is a good example. I have a gentleman who is 46 years old and has a lot of back problems. And we're working through him to try and get him up to a level where he can do some of that intensity. He flies airplanes on the weekends, so a lot of sitting, a lot of in and out of airports. It's high stress level job, comes in during the week, and we want the other day we just talked and he did 25 minutes on the elliptical, and that was like good. I'm like, I want to get him moving. I kind of want to blow the dust off, so to speak, and get this get this body kind of moving and getting kind of conditioned for that. And then I can start to play with maybe, okay, we're going to bump it up 30 seconds. It's just a little go harder, a little 30 seconds like that, and back it off. Everybody's different. You're right. So you're not doing anything wrong. If you're going into the gym and saying, well, this guy on this podcast told me I need to be at 30 seconds a minute. No, listen, like, due to your tolerance. That's also why I like to use that exertion scale. If you're walking and you're briskly walking and that's hard for you and you can honestly give yourself a number, you're like, this is an 8 out of 10. Like, I'm really working hard. Okay, that's you. That's okay. The next person can sprint for 20 minutes and that's their 8 out of 10. You have to be able to judge where you're at, and we can always progress from there or make it difficult or add incline on a treadmill. There's a variety of options.
Well, I like that, using the rate of perceived exertion, as opposed to, we've all seen the treadmills that have the green and yellow and red lines and the different heart rates and things like that on them, that I think many people have kind of gotten too attached to that, and I got to be at this range, or they've got all these fancy new gadgets, these watches and Apple iWatches, and they're telling them their heart rates and things like that, and they want to use all these fancy new tools. But sometimes it's just as simple as, are you pushing yourself? Are you not pushing yourself? And you will find that when you get to a certain range, you don't want to push any harder. And depending on your level of athleticism, and you and I in the gym, when we have an athlete, that's where our expertise comes in, and we know, okay, we can push this guy a little harder. He's an NHL hockey player. He needs to be able to find that extra level. But if this is Joan, who's 75 years old, and she's had a knee replacement and has, like you said, a bad back, we're not gonna push her to that 9 and 10 perceived exertion level. We're just gonna push her where she can go. And so anybody out there, I think, listening to Neal here say that you have your own quote unquote sprint level, and it doesn't have to look like Usain Bolt sprinting on track. It can be walking at a 2-degree or 2-level incline on the treadmill, and I think it's important for people to realize that. Yeah,
and the other side too, just kind of like a side note of this, the long slow kind of cardio, the 3 to 5 times per week. There's a lot of great insights and research out there that is good. We've just, over the last 2 or 3 decades, found this to be better, and that's all it is. Like, 1 is good, 2 is better. On the flip side, I've done a lot of max testing on people who were marathoners, and the long distance. I ran cross country. I do 10 miles a week. I mean, obviously, they are conditioned for that. We can condition the body in a lot of different ways. We can really train specifically. There's a lot of things, obviously, we can do. I've run into a lot of people that end up with pacemakers or have some sort of irregular rhythm long term. These are some people even in their 50s or even late 40s or 60s. I've been running since I was born, and they love it. That's what that runner's high. They can't get enough of that. The pacemaker defibrillators end up coming on board. Your heart is obviously a muscle, and it can get thickened as it strengthens. And people start to, you have a lot of electrical. The electrical conduction part of the heart goes through that muscle. So if you start to thicken those walls, you start to see a lot of changes in the EKGs. Now, an EKG can look abnormal, but it's their normal. But it's always one of those things where I've run into a lot of people that, like, oh yeah, I've run for 30 years and now I got a pacemaker because I just passed out running one day. And you're like, oh my gosh, like, why? like it's and we're going to put you on a treadmill. Okay, but that's again in the clinical side. But I think that long term, like years and years, like the heart can withstand it. But what's your goal? If you truly enjoy running, go for it. I have nothing against it. I'm more cautionary to people like we've talked about. Like if you're a golfer and you're looking for cardio endurance, where do you want to go with that? If that's your sport is this, or if you play tennis, like you walk to your golf ball, you put all this max effort into that, and then we recover and walk to it. So there's a short power phase kind of move that way. But there is also an endurance where, if you're going to walk 18 holes, that's 3 or 4 hours of walking up and down hills. You have to have some leg strength to do that. But I always kind of caution people on that. I just like to run and do marathons. And I don't know how it is in your area, Jeff, but marathons are all over the place. People are running 5Ks. They're doing – and I think that we see on TV, there's shows, or like that's like this gold standard that if you can run a marathon, you've made it. And it's quite a feat. Again, nothing against anybody that does it. The Akron Marathon goes right past where our clinic window was a couple weeks ago. And I love watching people run that are just sort of like gotten baited into doing it because the office needed one more person to do the leg. And boy, you see these rounded shoulders, posture, the side swiping of the arms and everything. And you look at how that has so much to do with your respiration and how much breath you can take at a time. Your running gait, all these things that go into running that people just, you have to pay attention to it, folks. It's worth it if you're doing it for a real quality reason. You owe it to yourself to just find somebody like Jeff or find somebody like myself that can just kind of watch you do it and give you some guidance on it that way. And you can be successful. Again, I have nothing against it, but there's too many people that are now half a mile in puking, or now the medics are there right away because we've rolled an ankle or we've done something, we just weren't prepared for the exercise. So I'm always making sure that if you want to do it, let's make sure you're obviously a little prepared for it. Yeah.
I think we could probably talk about the marathons and running and what it's doing, all day long. And I have plenty of friends that are right in there that love running. It's a passion of theirs, just like they look at us and like, how can you go spend 5 hours on a golf course? We're kind of the same way, how can you go spend 3 hours running? But let's kind of shift over into maybe a little actionable advice for the listeners. So let's say we've got a guy, fairly high level golfer, wants to get better, still kind of same scenario as a guy that has a job and everything. What are some protocols that you like to use as far as, a guy that can kind of get after it? No real medical issues, no problems there. When you have a guy like that, what are some of your favorite types of intervals as far as like, running or rowing or things like that? And then maybe some breakdowns that these people can kind of use and try out and, see what fits for them.
Sure. I tend to go towards the treadmill because I think it has the best kind of variability. A lot of your bikes where you're kind of pushing against a drum, I find a lot of people where if you set that at 4 miles an hour, like you're going to keep up with that. If you set it to the resistance, whether it's a recumbent bike, like I said, a stationary bike or an elliptical, the RPMs tend to vary. So you watch people get tired, and then all of a sudden, like, they can't maintain the RPMs. And that's what you want to be able to maintain that intensity for a certain amount of time. So what I like to do is I kind of do like a mini test on players where they just say, listen, let's get a little bit of incline, a little bit of speed, normal walk. How do you feel? Feel pretty good. Okay, on that, I go with that rate of perceived exertion. What number can I honestly give myself? This is a 2. This is a 5. I could do this all day. Okay, let's add a little more speed, a little more incline. And if you can get yourself up to where you might feel like, hey, I can do a pretty good jog, and you're jogging along, and you're like, hey, it's still a 6. Okay, let's add more incline. I would add incline until you got to a point where you were like, whoa, maybe another minute I can do this, but I'm not much longer. And then I would use that as my standard for 2 to 3 intervals of that. Say, okay, I know that I can go 7 miles an hour up a 6% incline, and that is my 8 out of 9, or that's my 9. Like I only got so much time I could do that in. And then go from there. So you almost kind of give yourself a little bit of a mini test, but I always go back to that rate of perceived exertion, because you want to say, hey, if something's a 6, you're going to keep doing it, or you're just not going to, it gets boring and you've quit. So I really want to max you up to 45 seconds to a minute. That's kind of like your gold standard for time. Back off of that, walk, maybe go do some other mobility work, go do some other stretching or something like that. When you feel like you're completely recovered, like I'm back to a 1, I could absolutely do that 45 seconds again, then go do it. It's about the time. And if you find you're like, hey, you know what? After a couple weeks, I can do a minute 45, and now it's more like a 6. I'm just going to try and get to a 2 minutes. Nope. I want more speed, or I want more incline. You want to increase the intensity and keep it at that 1 minute time. And then make sure you're almost completely recovered. If you can honestly tell yourself you're back down to a 1 or a 2 on that exertion scale, let's go back and do it again. But again, you only want to be able to probably do that 3 or 4 times. People could easily do it more, but I want to leave a little more in the tank for being able to do, like I said, go do some mobility work, some strength training, or some short speed work on the cable cross or something like that. So use a treadmill. What I also like to do is I have a BOSU ball in my gym. I have a couple BOSU trainers there that this is always fun too, Jeff. You kind of mess with people. I'll say, okay, do you want the 5-pound weight or you want the 10-pound weight? And they're like, well, what are we going to do? I'm like, no, you pick. I'll take the 10. I'm like, okay. And we just do step-ups on the BOSU. Step up, 2 10-pound weights go up over their head, and they step back down. Go, 45 seconds. And then they wish they had that 5-pound weight.
Yeah.
But just you can max them and sort of gas them in between your workouts. So honestly, what I like to do is I get players in. I'll say, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna play 18 holes. We're gonna do mobility. We're gonna do stability work. We're gonna do now our short bout. Let's go do our high intensity intervals like that for 45 seconds. Let's do some balance work. Now we're gonna do some power work. And now we've basically played 6 holes. Basically, now we're gonna play 6 more holes. We're gonna go back to mobility, stability, balance, strength, back to our cardio component. So if you round it around like 18 exercises like that, you're going to get 3 bouts of your high intensity, and you've gotten a complete sort of what we would consider a golf workout. So I like to run players through that, and really once they get to the end of that last cardio bout, it is grueling. It is tough because you've just taxed the body physically in 3 or 4 different directions, obviously.
Well, that sounds like that could be a good style for a workout that somebody could do when they're crunched for time.
Sure. They
could even just do like the 6-hole bout, or whatever. But I want to back up. You said that it was important for the guys and girls to get back to that 1 or 2 level as far as their rate of perceived exertion. Sure. Why is that so important?
People tend to you'll quit before you got to that minute. I think that you'll ramp yourself up. You'll be really good. And by the time you get to that 2nd or that 3rd interval, you're like, I only got 30 seconds, and you quit. And like I said, if I want to get the most bang for your buck out of doing that, you want to completely recover. Give yourself a chance to completely get back to that level of, I can put my max effort into this next 45 seconds. We know you did it once. You can do it again, but own that interval, not for a 45 second to a minute and then I did 2 30s. No, I want to see it's more beneficial that you can do all out, max out the best you can, 45 seconds to a minute, and then recover and then do it completely again. And that's truly why I want you to get to that minute, that max minute. And there's some metabolic and scientific reasons as to why that's sort of the magic number, but it's because people, I think, just you poop out. You just don't have it, and you want to be able to own that duration.
Yeah, I remember having Dr. Mark Smith on the line, and I think it was episode number 4 here on the podcast, and he's got a great research paper. I'll link that up in the show notes. But he talks about doing that minute sprint and then having up to a 3 minutes to 4 minutes rest in between, and to do it at its purest form. He's like, I want you just chilling out for those 4 minutes. Now we don't always have the luxury of having a bunch of time in our schedule, so sometimes we'll do some mobility drills or some stretching. But basically the idea is get yourself back to as close to 100% as possible, so you have every ounce of effort to be able to put back in again. Are there ever times where you do break it up into shorter little bursts of intervals, say, the 10-second, 20-second, or like you said, 30-second?
Sure.
Do you ever do that with people?
Yeah, you can. It's the player's tolerance. If I've got you for 45 minutes, or we're in a small group session, Jeff, you work with people all the time. Everybody knows how they kind of check in at the gym. You've got a lot on your mind. You've either come off of a hard day at work, or it's early in the morning, or you didn't sleep well. There's so many factors that obviously can go into getting a quality workout. And if you only had 30 minutes or 20 minutes, or I got an hour today, it's in the afternoon, I haven't had breakfast. All of those variables, you watch somebody come into the gym, and I'm just like, how are you feeling today? I feel good. Okay, what's that mean? Well, no, I feel good. Can we go full go today? Absolutely. Okay, now, yes, let's go into some of those 45-minute, 1-minute intervals. If you just don't feel like you got it that day, break it down into some 20 or 30 seconds, or maybe you get one in and you think, hey, I feel pretty good. I just need to kind of get in the groove and do it. If you're doing something, you're better than doing nothing. Yeah. I'm not that. I always tell people, and nobody pukes leaving my gym. All right, this is we want to actually get ourselves into a position where we can leave the gym feeling, listen, I feel like I've taxed my body today. I feel better doing it, and I could probably go play 9 holes right now and really do the best I can. And that's what it comes down to. But if you broke it down into some short intervals like that, or if today is just a day where I just feel like I just want to do like a moderate 15 minutes on the treadmill, then do that. It's too easy to beat ourselves up as to we're doing something wrong, right. Or we look over and there's somebody else next to us doing something that, well, I look at them, I could do it. No, stay in your lane. You're doing absolutely fine, and push yourself when you can.
Yeah, I think sometimes we get too caught up in the minutia, in the little details, and am I doing this right, or how can I do this better? It's like, as long as you're doing it and you're consistent with it, and just like an exercise program or a corrective exercise program, you're going to be better off than if you kind of waited it out until you figured out the perfect way to do it. So I think
Sure.
That's very well said.
And long term, for the golfers, you're going to find that after 3 or 4 rounds, if you play some tournament golf on the weekend, or you're at the club, or you play back-to-back rounds, or you got a day when you have to play 36 holes, whether it's like an outing or something like that, these players that come back to me, they're like, we didn't do 45 minutes of cardio. But I felt really good after the round. Like I felt like I could actually play another 9. So there is a benefit to that. Your body does adapt, and there is the endurance you're looking for to walk or to play golf. It's there. Your body will pull from it if you're training that way.
Yeah, for sure. All right, man. We're going to close up with a couple quick questions that I know
Sure.
you've heard before.
Okay.
But you got to know which one, Happy Gilmore or Caddyshack?
I've prepped for this for the last 12 hours, Jeff, and I can tell you wholeheartedly it is Caddyshack. Nothing against Happy Gilmore, but the comedic genius in that movie, along with some legendary comedians, you could not replicate that ever again. So you just gotta go Caddyshack.
I think I agree. I think I'm gonna have to start something on like Twitter or Facebook where people are just kind of throwing out their favorite quotes or whatever from their favorite movie, whichever one they like. But we've had some definite mixed opinions here on the show.
Yeah.
All right, man. If you had the opportunity to spend 18 holes with anyone in the golf world, past, present, who would it be and why?
One person or a foursome?
One person.
One person. Okay, I didn't prep for that one. If I had to pick one person, I think I would probably want to walk alongside of Ben Hogan, because, I guess that's an easy answer, but when you read Hogan's books, like his 5 lessons, or you look at some of his thoughts and how his work ethic was, he was ahead of his time. So many guys that were so legendary, so many decades ago were ahead of their time. But when Hogan starts talking about the body and he starts talking about science, nobody was talking about that then, Jeff. He was thinking about that. When you look at the drawings and things that were in some of the books and the things that he discussed and his approach to mechanics, and obviously the results, and that man was in a life-threatening car accident and he came back and still won on tour. I mean, you have, from a physical conditioning side, there's a number of people, I'm sure listening right now, that have had trauma to them physically, or there's somebody out there that's like, yeah, I'd love to play again, but that's not in the cards. I've had X, Y, or Z. It can be done, and I'm not certainly. I'm a boy amongst men that have people who've been on this podcast, but there's a lot of great expertise. There's a lot of great research out there that was, I feel, pioneered from people like Hogan that really lived what they did, and to be able to walk alongside that man and just to listen to see how he had an approach to the game would be fantastic.
Yeah, I think he was before his time, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, all right, when you hear, or when you first heard the term 18 strong, what did that mean to you?
It was an epitome of playing the best golf you can. You have to have a certain amount of physicality to go 18 holes. It's not a 12-hole sport. It's not a 14-hole sport. 18 holes. Give it 100% from hole number 1 to hole number 18. So 18 strong was, funny enough, kind of one of those little coin phrases. Something I was thinking about a couple of years ago, and then I saw you had the 18 strong. I'm like, I'm glad somebody did it. I never really kind of went with anything with it, but when I saw you had really coined that and really taken off with it, I was in high regards for what you've done with it, because it is true. And strong is a relative term. Strong can be something to, like I said, a 75-year-old to a 17-year-old. But whatever your strong is, own it for the whole 18 holes, and you'll never go wrong.
Well, I'm glad you didn't snatch up that domain name a couple of years ago. That would have really changed this podcast.
No. Like I said, it was one of those. I said something like 18 fit or fit for 18, or I don't know. It was just these little notes that you kind of make, like those beverage napkin kind of notes, and then said, went on with what I'd been successful at. But no, kudos to you. You're doing a great thing here, Jeff. I appreciate having me on today.
Thank you very much. All right, what do you have going on that most excites you at Golf Fitness Plus?
We're starting an elite group. Basically, I'm really targeting a lot of the club pros in the area that I work with. That I want you to find me 15 or 20 guys that for the next 6 months are just tired of not being 18 strong. That it is time to own a new way to play and a new way to feel. And so I'm really excited about trying to launch this core specific group of guys that want to be able to come in, and gals, that for 2-3 days a week, we're going to do some good education, and then we're going to do some small group work, and we're going to take the next 6 months to really come out of winter into April and look like a completely different golfer, to feel like a completely different golfer, from mind, body, and spirit, if you will. We'll do some educational workshops. I like cooking breakfast for guys. Just like, hey, we're gonna have breakfast and coffee one morning. We're gonna talk about what hip mobility actually is, or how I actually can gain power through my core, or whatever that means. Those are terms we throw around a lot, but what does that actually mean? How can we apply it? And then let's go to work this week. So I'm excited about doing that, and I've got a lot of junior stuff that we're going to start doing for a lot of high school kids too, that are getting a lot of momentum in the area to start having some success there.
Very cool. All right, Neal, any last piece of advice, and then let the audience know where they can find you?
Sure. One more piece of advice as it pertains to the cardio and your cardio health. I'm first and foremost the one to be an advocate of it, because I was diagnosed with sleep apnea last November. 35 years old, and I don't look like anybody that should fit the bill for sleep apnea, but it has a tremendous amount of taxing on your cardiopulmonary system. Basically, if you were sleeping at night and somebody started to slowly choke you, that's what sleep apnea is. Your airway is restricted, and it puts a heavy amount of stress on your cardiovascular system. We always joked, people snore or they have issues with that. It's always kind of funny. My dad used to rattle the windows for years. It was a big joke, and had severe sleep apnea. So I would encourage any man out there, if you are fatigued during the day or sleepy, or, we chalk it up to just not have enough coffee or whatever the case is. I've become a big proponent on sleep apnea, Jeff. It's really one of those silent things that nobody really knows much about, but if you have a restless leg, or you've got some issue with that where you just don't feel like you're sleeping well, you owe it to yourself to go to get a sleep study, talk to your doctor about a potential for sleep apnea. it's done wonders for me to be on I wear a BiPAP at night, a CPAP machine that actually helps regulate my breathing in the middle of the night and my airway. And I'm telling you, I'm a different person because of it. So it's kind of one of those silent things. It's under the rug, but I definitely encourage any male or female out there to don't ignore any potential warning signs for that. It's a big deal.
That's great advice. And I'll touch base with you after the show to see if you have any resources that we can kind of plug into the show notes for, somebody
Sure.
just get a little more information or kind of figure out if that's, because I know I have a couple guys that deal with that, and, changing just the amount of sleep that you get and the quality of sleep that you get. You're right. It can change your life, really. So
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. But Neal, I'm at Golf Fitness Plus on Twitter. I've been doing some more Periscope too, if you want to check me out on there, and Facebook, Neal Hausch, or golffitnessplus.com.
Cool. Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me, Jeff.
Great conversation. I know there's a lot of stuff in here that, the audience is going to take and hopefully put to use in the gym over this next coming off season and play better golf when they come out on the other side.
Absolutely. So there's always, now, any time of year is always a good time. Get strong for golf. Be 18 strong.
You got it. All right, so you guys can get all of the information on how to follow Neal, how to find out more about Golf Fitness Plus, all that stuff on Neal's page on the 18 Strong. On 18strong.com. And for more episodes, like I said, listen to episode number 60 with Adam Long. For all the other episodes that we have, go to 18strong.com and go to the podcast section. But we've also now got all of our videos, all of our YouTube videos. We put out 2 videos a week. We've got all of our videos on different exercises to help your game, different ways to help prevent injury. Everything is now on the 18strong.com platform. So if you go to 18strong.com, just go to the videos tab up top, and we're starting to sort out all the different categories, starting to sort it into the different coaches that we have featured on the show. And we've got a couple new coaches that are coming out with some new content and videos, really from all across the world. We've got some coming from Berlin, soon to be some from Dublin. We've got Denmark. We've got Canada. We've got basically we're kind of spanning the globe with 18 Strong. So I appreciate you being here. Don't forget to leave your rating and review and subscribe to the 18 Strong podcast. That's the last time I'll bother you about that, at least in this episode. So don't forget, train hard, practice smart, play better golf.
Thanks for listening to the 18 Strong podcast at www.18strong.com. And remember, train hard, practice smart, and play better golf.